Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for joining us. Well, we talk about physician mental wellness and also the joy in practicing medicine, so a little conversation about doctors. But first, the business community responds to Governor Shapiro's $48.3 billion budget request. We'll get to all of that after these words.
Welcome to the fast-paced and unrehearsed weekly discussion featuring the leaders who help shape your world. Join us as we address the issues that impact you each and every day. This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Welcome back. Well, we have a lot to cover in the program, and so let's get to it. We're going to hear from two representatives from the business community. Luke Bernstein, he's the president and CEO of the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, and Carl Marrara, he's the executive director of the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association, two business entities that have a lot to say about Governor Shapiro's budget. Do I got that about right?
That's right.
Absolutely right.
All right, Luke, well, let's start with you. The governor went on. It was a long speech. It was about an hour and a half. I don't remember, and I've been following this for a long time, a speech with more specifics and numbers in it. That's not a criticism. It's an observation. And the number of aspects that it covered was unbelievably, how do I put this, lengthy? I think that's one way to put it. So what's your takeaway in a general sense about the budget? You can get into the specifics or just your general takeaway.
No, I appreciate your comment and for being here. I think you're right. There was a lot there. And so as you try and take a step back and take a look at it in totality, I think the one theme he talked about throughout was competitiveness. Yeah. And I think from a business standpoint, that's something that we've talked about for a long time. And I think and how we approach this, because we are the only state in the country with a divided government right now. Right. So if we're going to get more competitive, there's going to have to be broad-based agreement from both Republicans and Democrats. And so the governor's laid out some very ambitious and bold areas. And from a business community, we've laid out a number of areas that we think makes Pennsylvania more competitive. So how we can sit down and get to the spirit of that competitiveness is where I think this really comes to the table. And that's going to be, I think, as this plays out, the real important element that leads us into discussions.
Well, I mean, for us, competitiveness, is our mission. We want it to be the smart business decision for manufacturers who are, really the backbones of economies to locate, hire, and expand here in Pennsylvania. I'm going to be a little less diplomatic. I think that the governor is unfortunately suffering from a little bit of shiny object syndrome here. A $48.3 billion, 8% increase, right. And you mentioned it yourself, the breadth of issues. I equate it to this. If you had a $48,000 budget to renovate a house and all you did was put in granite countertops and luxury appliances, but the roof was leaking and the foundation was cracking, I don't know that that would be money well spent. I think what we need to do is focus on the fundamentals. We need to fix the leaking roof. We need to fix the crumbling foundation, and there's ways to do that. I don't know that putting new money at new programs when we need to right-size our existing programs is necessarily the correct way to go about it.
The current programs, is that your point?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think one piece of this is, and we talk about structural reform, is I think what a good example, utilizing Carl's example of the infrastructure. So as we look at the foundation, some areas where I think we have to change is when you look at our tax reform structure. We talked a lot about other states. Ohio doesn't have a corporate net income tax. Pennsylvania, until 2 years ago, had the second highest in the country. Right. Now we're the sixth highest in the country. Right. So we still have a long ways to go. I appreciated the governor continuing the phase down, but we really need to expedite that if we're going to be more competitive.
And we do have, $14 billion in reserve?
But by his own admission, after this budget, we'd have 11, which means that he's spending $3 billion, or proposing spending $3 billion more than what baseline revenues are. Well, extrapolate that out. I know that, Terry, you had said yourself that you've seen 40 years of these. Have you ever seen a budget that spends less in a year following than in the year current? No. So this is going to be the new baseline.
Yeah.
This will be the new baseline. Well, you can only, if we're going to spend $3 billion beyond what our surplus is, you can really only do that for, I don't know, 4 or 5 budget cycles before that well runs dry. And now you're leaving the taxpayers with, I mean, a very significant structural deficit, and the only way to fix that, there's 2 ways to meet revenue, right? And that's either to cut expenses or to increase taxes.
Right. All right, let's run to a break. When we get back, I want to get into some of the specifics that I'm sure you are interested in, and I hope you are out there as well.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
All right, I'm talking with 2 leaders of the business community about Governor Shapiro's $48.3 billion budget. That's a 7% hike over what it was last year. And so let's now talk about the specifics, and particularly those that involve the business community. I'll go back to you, Carl.
So I mentioned the shiny object syndrome. To me, one of the shiny objects was the proposal about these pad-ready sites, $500 million to get pad-ready sites ready for industry to come in.
What's a pad-ready site?
So a pad-ready site is a construction site that has the basic fundamentals for a business to be able to come in and set up shop and be able to utilize that space in order to run an operation. We already have that. We already have hundreds, I mean, if not thousands, of what are called brownfield sites. Brownfield sites are former manufacturing sites that need to be reclaimed, and there needs to be environmental mitigation. But those brownfields are an asset to our Commonwealth. They already have water connection. They already have rail connection. They already have road connection. Right. We don't have a catalog, a centralized catalog of where all those brownfield sites even are. That would be a fundamental that I'm talking about. Let's start there rather than building anew in states like Arizona that don't already have that existing infrastructure. They need to do that. We don't. We have existing brownfields. Let's use those as an asset. It's a fundamental to deploy those and reclaim whole communities in the process. We don't need $500 million to be able to do that when we can't even catalog what we already have in existence.
Right.
Yeah, there are a number of areas here, and you know, one of the things that we talk about, there are 3 core premises, I think, when we look at competitiveness, things that we need to change in Pennsylvania. Tax reform, we need to change permitting, regulatory reform, and we need to work on our workforce. If we could focus on those 3 areas, so I think prioritizing competitiveness was important, but what areas of competitiveness are we going to prioritize? And that's going to be this back and forth. So for us, net operating losses is a key area that was not in the budget. When we talk about rainy day fund, I think of that in 2 ways. One, if it's truly raining outside and we need to utilize those reserves, or 2, for one-time investments that's going to lead to significant economic opportunities for us down the road. And I think that's where the discussion should be, so we can invest now to create a longer sustaining economy, and that's been the challenge. Terry, we've lost a congressional seat in Pennsylvania every year going back, every census going back the last 100 years. We have to fundamentally change things. Our C&I has been too high, our net operating losses, so we are not conducive to coming here. So areas in this budget that I think should be prioritized is further tax reform, is further permitting reform. It's too hard to build in Pennsylvania right now.
He has things in there about affordable child care, where in this case, as he says, we need professionals. There are 4,000 unfilled child care staff positions. I mean, so there are aspects of this that relate to what you do, but aren't specific.
Yeah, I mean, but again, the focus on the fundamentals, and Luke is exactly correct in this. States that spend, I mean, he talked about site selectors, that he met with site selectors. And site selectors are those professionals that come in to determine what is the best location for a large industry to come in. States that spend money faster than baseline revenues come in, a site selector is going to be leery of citing a location there. Why? Because it creates an uncertain tax environment. Right. Going back to there's two ways to balance a budget, either to decrease spending or increase revenue. Yeah. If the state government is spending money faster than people can earn it, then the site selector is always going to be leery of that.
Yeah. One aspect that has to do with raising the minimum wage from $7.25 to $15 an hour now. I shouldn't interject, but I will. I thought rather that they might go to $9 or $10 an hour, but not go from $7.25 to $15.
Yeah, we've actually never seen in our country a state doubling its minimum wage. So from the impact, so when the IFO scored this last year, the Independent Fiscal Office, they really didn't know how to score that type of proposal statewide. So there are a lot of different factors. For example, the restaurants and hospitality industry, they came out and a lot of the wait staff and bartenders said, if you did this and you took away the tip wage credit system, we would actually see a significant decrease in our wages. Yeah. And so what would this do at a time of significant inflation when if you would take from 13 to 15, it's not just that, then you go from 15 to 17 or 17 to 20 and everyone then moves up. What does that do to prices? What does that do to the average family buying groceries, going through health care? It could compress the overall inflation rate.
Believe it or not, we're out of time. I hate to say that. We need more time to talk about this, but we don't have it because we're going to now talk about you and particularly your doctor. And we'll get to that following these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Cross-State Credit Union Association. Credit unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, go to ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties, representing the faculty and coaches who are devoted to providing quality public higher education for Pennsylvania's college students.
Welcome back. Well, we're going to talk about you and your doctor, especially your doctor. Joining me to do that is Kristen Sandel. She is the president of the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Kristen, welcome to the program.
Thank you for the invitation.
All right, well, let's start out with, we're going to talk about, you have in a promo, restoring the joy in practicing medicine. So let's start out by talking about, the joy in practicing medicine.
Sure. I think many of your physicians, almost all of the physicians, have really gone into medicine because they want to help patients. They want to help people. And, as medical students, we had dreams of sitting at the bedside and holding people's hands and helping them through their healthcare crises or, preventative medicine. And now we find that a lot of burdens are being placed on physicians, and they're taking those communications away with the with the patients, and we're not able to have those interactions that we hold so dearly. As an emergency,
for 18 years you've been practicing medicine? Yeah,
so I've been an emergency medicine physician for over 18 years.
What a tough job. I hate it.
It was tough, especially during the pandemic. We saw a lot of physician burnout. The physician burnout has gone up over 43% since pre-pandemic, and we're seeing a lot of physicians questioning the sustainability of healthcare and the sustainability for them to practice into their elder years. And we're even seeing the average age of the primary care physician in Pennsylvania is 51 years old.
51. Mm-hmm. Is that older or younger than you might think?
It's older than I thought.
Really?
A little bit. But the thing is, those physicians are going to be retiring soon. And then we need people to take their place, and we need people to...
Is that a growing problem?
It is. You know, we need physicians, especially in primary care, doing preventative medicine and being in underserved areas where, you know, it's difficult to get into a physician, and people end up utilizing the emergency department because they don't know where to go. And then that's contributing to ED boarding and overcrowding as well.
Well, let's talk about an issue that you refer to as pervasive, and that's mental wellness. I mean, we normally, when we go in, we have a problem, and we don't think much about the fact that a doctor might have a problem. We just want them to fix us, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to what you think about in a plane. You know, you have to put your own mask on before you put the oxygen mask on someone else. And it's a similar concept in medicine. We can't treat patients unless we know that we ourselves are well. And physicians in Pennsylvania and across the country aren't well. We're seeing increasing rates of burnout, of behavioral health issues, of depression, and unfortunately physician suicide. And those are things that we need to start looking at. And we need to start bringing people back to the joy in medicine and why they actually went into medicine. It's not, you know, it's not to chart and to look at computers instead of patients.
Right. Well, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, I want to talk about the joy in practicing medicine and where all that leads to. And I must also mention that we have something else coming up. It's called Doctor's Day. We'll get to that in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine.
All right, we're back. We're talking with Kristen Sandel. She is the president of the Pennsylvania Medical Society. All right, can we do something about restoring joy? I didn't know joy was lost, but obviously it has been in some cases. So how do we restore it?
That's a great question. And, you know, what we've been doing as the Medical Society, especially with my initiative, is we're going out and we're speaking with a lot of physicians individually to see what we can do to restore the joy in medicine. And we are seeing a lot of themes. Some of the themes are regulatory burdens, specifically with documentation. Many people can probably relate to going to a physician office and not actually seeing the face of the physician because their face is in a computer. It's having issues with insurance company pre-authorizations, and you know, they can't get their CAT scans or their MRIs because we're waiting for authorization when those patients really need that. And sometimes we just need to focus on what brings us joy. You know, what are the things every day that we can focus on to say, you know, I had a great day because I had a great patient interaction, or I had a great interaction with a colleague, or you know what, I saved a patient's life today, and let me focus on that versus all of the other things that are bogging us down.
Yeah. Let's talk about mental wellness among physicians. Is it a pervasive problem, mental wellness? Again, we go in to see a doctor, and I have several that I see fairly regularly. You don't think very much about their health care, whether it's physical or mental.
I think a lot of times doctors put their own well-being aside because they're busy caring for patients and caring for their own family. And, you know, as we see doctors that are suffering from things like depression or thoughts of suicide, they don't want to bring those to the forefront because they think that, you know, it would look negatively upon them if they acted on that. And so, you know, so we have things at the Pennsylvania Medical Society, like the Pennsylvania Medical Society Foundation, and that has a physician health program where people can anonymously go to that program and get help. You know, a lot of the physicians that are employed have employee assistance programs, but physicians are really hesitant to do that because they feel like they just are putting up a white flag, you know, like they're surrendering, but it's not surrender. It's actually making them better, and in turn, it will make their patients care better.
Well, let me go to the enjoyment in practicing medicine. Is it something that needs to be restored? To what degree is there a problem with physicians actually enjoying the practice of medicine?
I think we we hear it a lot. You know, we hear a lot of the negative things coming out of practicing medicine. Again, you know, these regulatory issues, these insurance issues, these disagreements among colleagues or with their, you know, administrations. And what we need to do is focus on the solutions, not on the problems. Yeah. You know, we need to be part of that solution. So whether that's advocating for physicians in Harrisburg with our governor's office and with our legislators in the Harrisburg area, whether that's going locally and working with physicians to have a better relationship with their employers or with their hospital systems, those are the types of things we can do.
The relationship also matters between a patient. I mean, you know, I know friends of mine, we talk about going to see a doctor, and some of them talk about how much they complain about the need to see a physician. And so doctors get a lot of complaints about things that aren't even related to the health situation that has brought them into the physician's office, correct?
No, that's correct. And, you know, one of the things that we also would advocate for is for patients to start advocating for some changes in healthcare that would make their relationship with their doctors more meaningful.
Before there are a couple of other things, but what's Doctors' Day? Doctors'
Day. So Doctors' Day is a national holiday. It's March 30th. We are at the Pennsylvania Medical Society celebrating it on March 28th. And what we are asking for is for anybody to nominate their doctor or a doctor they feel like is worthy of getting a Doctor's Day award. And this is one of the things we're trying to do to bring back the joy in medicine, to celebrate the physicians that really are doing a good job and they're making an impact on patients' lives.
Yeah, and so this is a pretty big deal.
It's a really big deal, and you know you can go onto our Pennsylvania Medical Society website, and there is an application form, and you don't have to write a lot. You know, just a little bit about why that doctor, what that doctor means to you, and how they've changed your life.
Look, for a physician, and we talked about joy in practicing medicine, but the patient has a huge role to play in that relationship, correct?
Oh, absolutely. You know, just in my experience, when a physician receives a letter from a patient telling them how much their care meant to them, it turns their completely day, week, month around, and it reminds them why they went into medicine. You know, a lot of times, as with any other profession, you tend to focus on the negative comments, that one negative comment out of 100. But when you get that compliment and that comes through, and you know, there's just it's so personal and it means so much.
Well, what can we all do? What can the public? Is there something we all can do? I mean, obviously, chatting with your doctor and making sure you thank him or her properly is extremely important. Is there other things that can be done?
Again, I would say advocating with your local legislator, whether it's your representative, your local senator, and just, you know, and talking about the things that we can do to make healthcare more manageable, both from the patient perspective and for the physician's perspective. And let's take some of those barriers away so that we can get back to the bedside and we can really get back to that patient-doctor relationship that many people hold sacred on both sides.
Yeah, the things that matter.
Correct.
Yeah. And, well, look, I want to thank you for coming on. It's been an important discussion. Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And as always, stay well.